Hi everyone, Coach Ali here. I just wanted to come on today and do a little video about this whole concept of self-kindness, self-compassion, and what that really means, kind of how to apply it within the recovery from insomnia journey. This is in response to a question I got on one of the videos from Teresa. Hi, Teresa. So I just wanted to give a little bit more in-depth answer about this because it's a concept that's, I think, a really misunderstood and hard to grasp, because I can say from experience, when I went through my journey of recovery, I really thought, I was kind to myself. I didn't really understand, like, well, what do you mean? Of course I'm nice to myself, But where it showed up for me, and this was really a lot later in my journey that I kind of got this, is I started to listen to this voice in my head that was the critic, right? We all have an inner critic kind of in our head, and if we pay attention, it's a pretty loud inner voice there, that inner critic. And what I was noticing is that I was really hard on myself. When I listened to that inner critic, that voice was very self-sabotaging, really. It just was, I beat myself up a lot. I held myself up to these high expectations, these standards that really no human could live up to. And I had these crazy high expectations of myself. And I was very critical with myself, feeling like I should be able to do this better, right? I shouldn't need the help of a med. I shouldn't, I shouldn't feel so scared, or, what was wrong with me? All of these ways that I was really just critical of myself. And so what I really like to share with people to help understand this concept is talking to ourselves like we would our dear child or our dearest friend, right? And really having this inner voice of softness, of kindness, holding ourselves in that way that we would somebody that we just adore and love, right? And if we're aware, if we notice, we really don't do that with ourselves. We do that with people we love, but it's harder to do with ourselves. And how I finally sort of recognized this and became aware and saw this within myself was how I was talking to my kids. If my kids had a hard day or they were experiencing something difficult, and I was so gentle and compassionate with them and supportive and loving and kind. But when things were happening with me and I was having a really hard time, and I was, struggling with insomnia, wasn't sleeping well, or at all. And, those thoughts were like, what's wrong with you? Why can't you sleep? Why are you scared of being awake? Like, super self-critical, right? And it wasn't until I became aware of how I was talking to myself that I could see how critical I was being, and that I could actually start to change it and soften it. So that's what I started to do. I started to hear it, and then I started to shift it, change it. And I would notice when I was getting self-critical. And, one of the prime examples of this is struggling in the middle of the night, not sleeping, and reaching for a med in the middle of the night, taking a med, and then the next morning just feeling so bad about it, beating myself up. Why did I do that? I can't believe I did that. What's wrong with me? Why can't I do this without, that needing to take a med or that kind of support? And oh my gosh, it was just so debilitating the way I was talking to myself, and not helpful at all. If anything, it was just turning on more of the hyperarousal, the anxiety, and the, those protective mechanisms in our nervous system. And so it was really definitely not helpful. Once I saw it, I could be very clear about it and intentionally start to change how I was talking to myself, and I did. So one example I like to give about what this can look like in really practical ways is if we are parents, and even if we're not, best friend, however you would talk to somebody you love, say this child of yours or, your best friend or somebody that you love, has a bad dream. And they come into the room, in the middle of the night. I'm so scared. I had this really awful dream, What we wouldn't say to them is, what's wrong with you? Why can't you sleep? Why did you have a bad dream? Go figure it out. Go, go back to bed. Just we wouldn't say that. We would be soft. We would be kind. We would be compassionate. We would say, oh, I can see you're really scared. That must be really tough. Come here, let me hold you. Maybe we're gonna rub their back, read them a story. We're gonna convey a message of safety, right? To our friend, to our child. And that's ultimately what we need to do for ourselves and to this scared part of our brain. This part of our brain that's running the fear program, it's always looking to us to know how to respond to a situation. So if we are reacting with, oh no, something's wrong, this shouldn't be happening, this isn't okay, then our brain is going to go, oh, okay, danger, then I'm going to sound all these alarm bells and, protect you. That's how the brain works. And so it's always looking to us to convey safety. How we respond tells the brain whether it's okay, whether it's safe, or whether it is not. And so another good example of this that I really like is, when my kids were little and they were always falling, bumping their heads or scraping their knees. And when they would do that, they would look to me, how I respond, right? They fall off their bike and if I respond, oh no, then they're going to go, ah, and start crying, right? They're looking to me, how I'm responding. And I learned, if I can respond with, oh, you're okay, it's going to be okay, and just brush it off and give them a little hug and, send them on their way, then they're not reacting that it's a danger, that it's a threat. Your brain is exactly the same way. It's looking to us. It's looking to us to say it's okay, we're safe. Insomnia is a misunderstanding. That's all it is. The brain has misperceived something totally safe, being awake at night, as dangerous. So I hope that helps, because this is how we can move towards self-kindness, taking care of ourselves, being kind to ourselves, showing ourselves compassion like we would our loved one, like we would a small child, giving ourselves that gift of self-love. And yes, that can include taking a medication as support and kindness. That can be talking to a supportive friend. That can be, going walks are one of the ways I really love to take care of myself. It's grounding and supportive for me. So there's so many different ways. Everybody kind of has to find what works for them. But the idea is how we convey softness, gentleness, and safety to our brain. I hope that helps and makes sense. Thanks for the question, and feel free to comment, and I'll try to answer as many questions as I can. Have a great day.